Hi, I'm just back from the gym, and I thought I'd share my thoughts with you because I seem to be surrounded by people who are going through all sorts of life challenges at the moment, and I think we have those periods in our life. My 91-year-old mum fell over recently, broke a pelvis and her hip. My best friend's going through chemotherapy. You don't have to have those kind of things, but for most of us, we either go through those things, or we know someone who is, or we have to help someone who's going through those things. And whether it's the fact that you've got an overwhelming pile of work to get done at work, or whether the kids are driving you crazy, pretty much all of us at some point or other have to draw on our inner reserves of resilience just to get through what would otherwise be a normal day. We look at these things and you go, yeah, well, we probably could have expected my mum to fall over. You're going to have a friend going through chemotherapy at some time or other, but life seems to conspire to kind of lump all those things together. And really, that's what I want to share with you this morning. And when my thoughts in the gym went to, well, what are the ingredients about resilience? And I reckon they come down to 9 key concepts. I'm going to run through those as quickly as I can. The first is to challenge the level of thinking that got you into the situation that you are. With my mum, really what I was doing is I was resisting that. And if we don't change the level of thinking, then we can't solve the problem. And instead of resisting that, what I needed to do was go with the flow. And that's, obviously call the ambulance and those kind of things, and realize that all of the things that I had planned for today, and in fact this whole week, had to go off to one side or other whilst we get mum taken care of and go and visit her in the hospital, make her feel important, all those sort of things. If I was just fighting it, saying this is happening at the wrong time, that's not challenging the level of thinking. In other words, I have to think at a different level if I'm going to solve the problem that came as a consequence of the thinking that created it. It's a Buddhist concept that simply says, resistance creates problems. And whilst I say it's wrong and it's bad for my mum, and it is, it's awful for her to be going through. Mind you, she's doing better than the rest of us watching. I said to her yesterday in the hospital, I said, "Ma'am, is there a lot of pain?" She said, "No, I can get up and walk." And then she got up and walked and proved to me that really I was going through more agony than she was. So that's what I mean by challenging the level of thinking. I think it's the first thing about resilience is to get ourselves out of the fight mode and up to another level of thinking where we can find solutions. Second is to look at our emotions, because if we don't master our emotions, then they're going to master us. As far as emotions are concerned, it's a master and slave thing. Either you overcome them and turn them into the servant, or they just run you around the block. And so emotional intelligence is probably one of the most important areas you could address to in terms of what kind of skill is going to give you benefits all across the park, and no matter what the subject is, whether it's your parenting, whether it's what you're doing at work, whether it's your relationship, even wealth creation, all of it goes better if you have high levels of emotional intelligence. It's a complex subject, but it's easy to learn. So I'm going to commend emotional intelligence to you as number 2 cab off the rank. So really what I've said is challenge your level of thinking, master your emotions. Next cab off the rank, and not necessarily in this order, but equally as important as the others, is the idea of compartmentalizing things. And that's saying, okay, so I've got this project at work. While I'm doing that, I'm not going to be interrupted. I'm just going to focus on that, and that's the one thing that I'm going to do. We are classic self-interrupters. In preparation for this particular live, I made some notes, and what I noticed while I was making the notes is twice during the making of the notes, I went and checked Facebook. I interrupted myself. That's not very efficient use of the time. In fact, not only is it distracting me, but it's putting other pieces of information into my head to try to be juggled with all the other things that are equally as important as well. Compartmentalizing, blocking yourself out, getting the headphones while you're trying to create something important, closing the door when you have to your office or whatever it is. Compartmentalizing is a critical skill as far as developing resilience, because what it allows you to do is focus on something and get it nailed. And resilience, really, one of the things that feeds into resilience is this whole idea that I'm actually succeeding. What causes resilience to fade, when we feel like we lack energy, is when we're putting in a heap of energy but not really getting anywhere. So success kind of leaves clues, and one of the clues that it leaves is we find energy from it. Therefore, we need to block things into segments that we can actually succeed with because we focus on them with a fierce concentration. Number 4, what are you doing to get me time? We have to refresh, we have to renew, we have to revitalize. If we don't take the time to do that, then you're just like a battery and you're going to run flat. And the reality is, you may not have time to take out for me time, but if you don't, then you're going to get an illness that's going to force you to have time, which is not so revitalizing because it'll be because you're crook. So your body is going to demand to be paid for the price that you extract from it, from all of that concentration and focus and relentless activity. So how do you get those small breaks? You know, the smokers, what they do is they go outside every hour or so and they have a cigarette. And if you watch them, it's kind of pretty much revitalizing if you take out of us the chemical damage they're doing to themselves. But they do this. Now, really, what we should do is we should go out of the building when we see the smokers go up the other end so you're not in all those clouds of poison, and do the same thing. You know, 3 big, long, deep breaths could be all that you need. So figure out how you put that into your life. At the same time, understand that most of us thrive on relationships. So if you're looking to build resilience, one of the things that I'm going to suggest is that you look at how you can contribute to the relationships you're involved in. Obviously, the primary relationships are the ones that are going to feed you the most. So my relationship with my wife needs for me to turn up, not so much needing support, but being fit enough and capable enough and happy enough to make a contribution, to go out of my way and say, no, you sit there, I'll make the cup of tea. What can I do for you? And maybe, how about you take a break and I'll cook dinner tonight? Or let's go for a walk. In other words, if I turn up full of ideas and inspiration and thoughtfulness, then what happens is that relationship thrives. But it also, because it thrives, it makes me feel good, because when I go out of my way to help someone else or to ease their way forward, then what I'm doing is I'm actually telling myself that I've got plenty of energy. I can actually do this because there's spare energy and I can actually manage it. So it has a subtle, powerful message. In addition to that, it also means that your emotional bank account with the people who are most important to you is topped up. And when you need to make withdrawals, then there's a chance that you can actually do that. From that point of view, I'm going to suggest to you that number 6 on our list is that you should pray or meditate or be mindful or do yoga or whatever it is that creates the opportunity for you to tap into the core of inner peacefulness. This is the reality of your actual experience. So the truth about all of us is that we have this core of inner peacefulness. You are, in fact, joy, peace and love manifested here on the planet. But how often do you get in contact with that? Making time to pray or to meditate or to practice mindfulness or yoga or Tai Chi or whatever takes you within is critical to resilience, because what it does, it contributes to that refresh, revitalize, renew. That the way that it does is remind you that you're already okay, that you don't need to get more, that you actually are more already. Number 7 on my list is the ability to embrace change. I talk about my mum going into hospital. I'm going from hospital to hospital at the moment. My best friend's going through chemotherapy, so it's a bit of a runaround. But what that means is my day is different to normal. And embracing the change is what makes it possible for us. When I'm driving around from one hospital to the other, telling myself I've got no time to run my business and what about my relationships and what about my kids, then what I'm doing is resisting all the time. Whereas when I'm going from one place to another, if I can say to myself, here's an opportunity to be driving around, see what everybody else does in the middle of the day, or to just be out there and enjoy the fact that I have a car that I can get around in, that there are roads for me to drive on, in that I live in a free country and I can go wherever I want to go, whenever I want to go there, that allows me to turn the whole thing positive. Which kind of leads us to number 8 on the list, which is your self-talk. Is your self-talk predominantly positive or negative? Because if it's predominantly positive, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, or it's predominantly negative, this is hard, this is awful, I wish I wasn't doing it, then whatever it is, it's going to have a massive impact on your resilience and the amount of energy that you can bring to whatever it is that you do. So watch that self-talk. And when you find yourself being negative, it's time for you to deliberately switch it around and be positive. Which brings me to number 9 on the list, and that's your ability to reframe the circumstances. That is to take a disaster and turn it into a success by looking at it, not by changing it, by saying to yourself, what is great about this? So reframing, probably one of the most important personal development skills you can ever earn, boils down to, how do I turn this into a win? How do I turn a disaster into greatness? I counsel people who lost houses in the bushfires in Canberra in 2003, 500 houses burnt to the ground. Many people said this is the worst thing that ever happened to them, and I guess that's probably true in terms of financial disasters. Some of those people are uninsured, and they say to me, we'll never recover. And I reckon they're right. But there are other people who said, hey, here's an opportunity to rebuild. We've got no money, so that means we have to be more creative and inventive, but we'll look at this as an opportunity to start again. They reframed it. They didn't say it didn't happen. They didn't say that everything was okay. They just said, we're going to make the best of these circumstances. I would say to you, every set of circumstances you come across, person or event, that looks like a disaster, ask yourself, what have you come to teach me? What is the opportunity hidden in the ashes of this disaster? Because if I don't find the opportunity, I'm going to have to push and struggle and grunt my way through the whole thing. And that's just going to suck your resistance, or your resilience, sorry. Whereas reframing it says, well, here's an opportunity, and what you'll find is energy flows as soon as you put things in terms of opportunity. So those 9 things. Let me run through them for you quickly so you're aware of them. Change your level of thinking, because you can't solve a problem with the original level of thinking that created it. Number 2, master your emotions or they nail you. Number 3, compartmentalise things or you become distracted and you got 500,000 things done. Number 4, refresh, renew, revitalise, find that me time. Number 5, contribute to the important relationships in your life so that you are in the positive in those bank accounts. Number 6, pray, meditate, practice mindfulness, yoga, tai chi, whatever it is for you. Number 7, embrace change, because we're surrounded by it. It's the only constant in the universe. Number 8, watch that self-talk. Is it predominantly positive or is it predominantly negative? And number 9, reframe everything. How do I make an opportunity out of a disaster? There's 9 things that I'd recommend. You could spend a lot of time, but I can guarantee you the one thing. Put any effort into any one of those 9, and what you're going to find is your resilience is going to go through the roof.